Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment or medications if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. Visit bewelltexas.org.
Welcome to episode 261 of the Alamodome podcast. This is your host, Jared Kalmus, joined as always by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. And we've got a really, really tough game to recap for you guys this week. Man, one of the worst losses in program history for the UTSA Roadrunners to be leading the Tulsa Golden Hurricane 35-7 at the half and blow that lead and lose in embarrassing fashion on the road in Oklahoma. Adrian, it was a season ender, I think, emotionally for everyone.
Yeah, definitely a season ender. Emotionally deflated any sort of air that UTSA fan had coming off of the prior week win. And like, it's just a unbelievable example of a culmination of issues that UTSA has dealt with all season long, showing their colors in the worst possible way, all within the microcosm of like a quarter and a half, the end of the third quarter and the entirety of the fourth quarter. UTSA has an all-out collapse. I mean, it's 42-17 Roadrunners with 20 and a half minutes left in regulation. UTSA outgains Tulsa by 113 total yards of offense. UTSA has 2 turnovers on Tulsa. They win the turnover battle. They have a offensive possession for about 7-8 minutes longer than Tulsa has offensive possession. And just a complete collapse in a quarter and a half to let go of that lead is an implosion in the absolute worst way I've ever seen this team implode, by way of penalties, boneheaded mistakes, and just lack of execution. And lack of spirit, lack of fight. You kind of saw the air get deflated from players, as we talk about it getting deflated from fans. It was deflated from the players there in that fourth quarter too, it seemed like. And the craziest part about all of it, Jared, is that in the first half, this was the absolute best, sharpest, meanest, cleanest, best that the UTSA Roadrunners have looked by a long stretch, man. They were absolutely electric in the first half in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's probably the most disappointing and the most head-scratching part of all of it.
Yep, absolutely. A lot to build off of that. But before we go any further, if you're watching this on YouTube, you may notice my sick UTSA blackout gear that I've got. I want to give a big shout out to our friends at the UTSA Alumni Association for hooking it up with the blackout gear. It's incredible. I love it. I mean, I had high expectations, and when it came in the mail, I was just blown away. But good news, if you're a UTSA Alumni Association member, this gear can be yours as well. Go to utsaalumni.myshopify.com to get your hands on this very reasonably priced blackout gear for UTSA. Thank you again, Alumni Association. Awesome work. Their merch this year has been fantastic. Just another of the many perks you get from being a member of the Alumni Association.
Yes, if you are in fact still planning on making it to the Memphis game this Saturday, it is lights out. We'll be wearing the black uniforms, and so thus the black UTSA apparel is out. Shout out to the Alumni Association with the good digs on that.
Get dressed for a funeral in all black.
Appropriate.
Well, Adrian, let's kick things off with one of the 17 voicemails and text messages that we received from listeners. 17. That I don't know if we'll ever top that. That was crazy. So I went through all of them, and obviously we can't play 17 voicemails and read 17 texts to you guys. Some of the texts were like multiple texts as well, right? So like one sender sent like 3 to 5 text messages. So we had a lot to go through. Yeah, we had a lot to go through. So thank you. Please don't feel discouraged if we didn't get to you this week. Keep them coming. it is quite a blast for Adrian and I to go through these. So, stay ready on there. Hopefully, we'll tag you guys in for the next humiliating loss or big win for the Roadrunners, whatever it may be. But we'll play this first voicemail today and hop back in just a second.
What's up? This is Joe, class of 09. I'm really surprised to not see a lot of heat on Traylor after this game. I think we've hit our ceiling with him as a coach. I'm thankful for what he's done for us, but I don't think he's going to be the guy to take us to the next step. I think we need to get a younger coach in here to help us get to the next level. We've regressed this year. We've lost 5 years of momentum in one season. I feel like Traylor this year is like that coworker you got that's going through a divorce. He shows up to the office, he's physically there, but mentally he's completely checked out. This guy is a completely different dude this year. Second thing, I'm tired of hearing this is a rebuilding year. We have more talent on this roster than we've ever had. These guys are not being coached properly. Third thing, if you think we look bad this year, wait until next year when we have a Jeff-led defense with no veteran presence and all new players. It makes me sick just to think about that. Last thing, to hear anybody try to blame this on NIL is insane to me. A lot of these guys that are chasing NIL end up transferring out of their program. They never pan out anyways. This is a development issue. If you look at some of the big-time quarterback transfers that got into the G5, Malachi Moore at Boise State, Ty Thompson at Tulane, these guys all got beat out by quarterbacks that were already on the roster. Anyways, can't wait till next year when I can wear my sick Nike gear in a completely empty Alamodome. Birds up.
When you get 17 texts and voicemails, the cream rises to the top. What a fire voicemail from Joe, class of 09. That was
off the top rope there, Joe, and makes a lot of really valid points. But the number one thing that I think we need to key in and hone in on is this is a development issue. And I don't think you could hit the nail on the head any better. It is absolutely a development issue. This was not ever posed to be a rebuilding year. That narrative only happened in week 3 or week 4. But if you go back to fall camp in the preseason, we were talking about college football playoff expectations, talking about running the gauntlet, winning the American Athletic Conference, only one loss to the UT Longhorns, and your UTSA was going to be the G5 sweetheart representation in the CFP. No, now after you get skunked 39 points to Texas State and then 49 points to Texas the following week, and then you drop to ECU in the conference opener, now you start talking about, oh, it's a rebuilding year. That's a very, very drastic narrative change from where we started the season at. And
we're never going to find out. We're never going to find out what GTS 12 stood for, are we?
Hashtag GTS 12.
It was something about the playoffs, right? I feel strongly about that.
Yeah, it definitely was. And the reason why it's very clearly a development issue is because we are now 8 football games into this season. This team is 3-5. We've played 8 football games in 2024. We still have the exact same issues that we had in week 1 against Kennesaw State, and in week 5 against ECU, and in week 7 against Rice. It's the exact same issues, man. Nothing has changed. Nothing has gotten better. Nothing has improved. In game, this team is extremely undisciplined, extremely immature. UTSA 12 penalties against Tulsa. 6 of the 8 games UTSA has played in 2024, UTSA has committed 10 penalties, at least 10 penalties, 75% of the time. In 75% of the games that this team plays, they're going to commit at least 10 penalties. This is a fact.
Like 10 penalties in one game. 10 penalties in one game is like the worst penalty performance of a season for most teams. For UTSA, that's the expectation. That's really brutal. And, when we talk about development, it is kind of interesting because there's no doubt that the guys aren't being developed in certain ways, but in some ways they clearly are, right? Because the two deep gets younger and younger, and they start to look more and more talented, right? So those young guys have skill. I think they're getting coached up. They're performing at a high level. It's honestly, Adrian, the older guys that are committing all the penalties and making all the mental mistakes that prevent this team from winning football games, right? In my film breakdown, I kind of went and looked at the plays that I felt like were the turning points that led UTSA to this utter collapse where they lost the game. And almost every player that was at fault was an upperclassman. So I don't think it's development in the classical sense of, oh, we're going to take this young guy from the high school level and, teach him how to play the game at the next level and get him ready to perform and all of that. I think they're actually handling that part of the equation decently well. I don't think that they're holding the upperclassmen accountable, right, for their own mistakes and holding them to the leadership expectations that those guys should have, especially as single-digit holders.
Yeah. I think that's it's where we're probably seeing the biggest issues is sort of like that trickle down effect, right? It starts at the top. It starts with the leadership, and these are the guys that seem to be struggling with it the most, and not just the discipline issues, Jared, but also like on-field performance output on the stat sheet has been lacking from the upperclassmen and the single-digit guys in the leadership. Whereas you have underclassmen, you have freshmen, you have sophomore who are clearly better choices at positions, and they're not getting the majority of the snaps. They're still sort of being pushed to the wayside in favor of seniority getting more snaps, and it's not working. It's not working for this team. Yet nothing seems to be changing from a coaching standpoint. We're not making any sort of adjustments, not on an in-game basis and not on a week-by-week basis. This team looks exactly the same as they did in week one.
Yeah, and in our preview last week, I said that, I thought UTSA would only win by like 1 or 2 scores, and I felt that UTSA physically was going to completely outclass Tulsa. But I made a comment that's like, after 6 games or whatever, like you are who you are. Like whatever you put on film is who you are at this point. And it's really rare for a team to completely wipe that away. So it was like insane to watch them in the first quarter play like the cleanest football we've seen from this team all year long. But they couldn't change who they were, right? And all of that stuff reared its ugly head in the second half. And it was like making up for lost time. It's like, okay, we played 2 good quarters without doing anything stupid. Well, let's crank it up to 11 and make sure we get our full game's worth of stupidity out in those 2 quarters, right? Let's make sure that we're ripping helmets off players' heads, like, after the ball's thrown away. Let's make sure we're taking off our own helmet on the field because we're going to throw a little temper tantrum that Tulsa just scored. And by the way, those 15 yards get supplied on the kickoff, right? So you just take, 15 yards off of where you need to get to kick a field goal to win the game, which UTSA would have done. If Asari Simon would have kept his helmet on after Tulsa scored the last touchdown, the way that drive played out, they would have been at Tate Sandel's field goal range, right? I think Traylor said they only needed 8 more yards to be comfortable with where Tate would kick from, and then they took 15 off to start that drive because Asari Simon took his helmet off on the field, and that's one of your senior leaders. That's the guy that called the players-only meeting a couple weeks ago, right? So what lesson are these young guys learning? Like, I feel like we're going to have the same problem with the young guys in 2 years. Because, like, they're getting shown that they can do that kind of stuff, and it's not going to hurt their playing time.
Correct. It's boneheaded, man. It's completely boneheaded, the stuff that we're seeing in the form of penalties, right? Like, the most egregious, just stupidity after the whistle, before the whistle, right? And this is whenever it's happening. This has been the trend, again, all season long. These are, like, egregious, boneheaded stupidity penalties. Not stuff for guys playing too hard, as Jeff Traylor likes to call it. There's nothing about a guy playing too hard whenever he's getting a late hit on the sideline or taking his helmet off after a play's over. Like, there's nothing to do with playing too hard. It's stupidity. It's boneheaded. And it's lack of leadership, lack of discipline. It's so glaringly obvious. It's pitiful. And I think even going into the first half, before the collapse really started to unfold, the writing was sort of on the wall with UTSA just not doing what they needed to do as a football team. There's an instance there getting down into the very end of the second quarter, the end of the first half. UTSA is up 27-7. We have the ball on the 1 yard line, and it's a 4th and 1 at the goal line, and your offense is sort of doing whatever it wants at will. But we call a run play to Kavorian Barnes, who has been the lowest output running back on UTSA's roster, is averaging 22 yards per game. He's averaging 3 yards per carry, nearly a whole yard and a half less than what Robert Henry and Brandon High are getting you. And he takes like a stutter step in the backfield whenever he first gets the ball, and like it's just never there, and he gets stuffed on the goal line. The very next possession, we have the ball down in scoring position, getting close to the red zone. It's a 4th and 10. We go for it. Instead of just throwing the ball to the sticks, we throw like a touchdown attempt. It's like a 25 or 30 yard touchdown pass. It's overthrown. Ends up being another turnover on downs. So here's back-to-back drives where you're up 27-7, you're in scoring position. Rather than kicking a field goal or getting into the end zone on either of those, you come up with 0 points. And it's just like it's a small example of like UTSA kind of getting a little too flashy, getting too cute, however you want to phrase it, rather than just doing what they're supposed to do as a football team and playing damn football. Scoring the points, kicking the field goal, getting the first down, just score. Like you have not earned the right to get cute or to get flashy against anybody in college football, regardless of what the score is at that point. Like this team has not earned the right to throw a touchdown pass on 4th and 10 against Tulsa at the 30-yard line. We just haven't earned the right to do that. We don't deserve to do that. Who the hell do you think you are? We're 4 and we're 3 and we're 4 and or what is this right? We're 3 and 4. You can't even
get the words out. It's incomprehensible. UTSA's record is bad.
We're 3 and 4. What are you doing? Like throwing a touchdown pass on 4th and 10? Like who are you? Who the hell are you? Sit down. And so like that was like I did not like. I hated those calls so much. And sure enough, like it was just the very beginning of this team reclining their driver's seat, putting it in cruise control, thinking they had this thing in the bag. This team has nothing in the bag.
Yeah, I want to hone in a little bit more on that goal line stand with Kavorian Barnes. We got a couple of text messages from listeners about that. We did talk about it a little bit on our instant reaction episode on Patreon as well. So, I don't know if everyone had the same thought as us, but one of the texts said, I think the collapse started when we handed the ball to Barnes 2 times in a row inside the 5. To me, that was Traylor wanting, quote unquote, his guys to get good plays instead of doing the best play. So I wanted to say it was 3 straight carries to Kavorian. From
it was 4.
I think it was
4. It was 4. It was 4.
Yeah,
first and goal, second and goal, third and goal, fourth and goal. From first and goal at the 10, Kavorian Barnes runs on every single snap.
I'm sorry, man. I cannot accept that idea was in the back of their head of like, let's get one for KB, right? Let's get him into the end zone, right? He needs this, right?
And this is after Owen McGowan is 4 out of 5 on that same drive prior to getting the first and goal on the 10-yard line. Come on.
Yeah. It's very frustrating, man. I mean, the ship has sailed, right? The player he was is not the player he is anymore, man. It's unfortunate. Like no one wants that, but you're here to win ball games, right? And that's the reality. You got to put the best players you have in the best position they can to make plays. And I know Brandon High is banged up. I think he only had like 1 carry, but forcing the ball to a player that's not been effective 4 times in a row, you're not going to have good results for that. And the blocking was bad to end that drive, right? I think the linemen were gassed.
Sure.
They were, out of position on one play. But at the 3rd carry, there was a decent sized hole. But Kavorian's head was completely down. He was not looking at all to see how the play develops, like where his blocks are at. He just put his head down and ran right into the line, right? And
cut the wrong. Didn't even cut.
Yeah, I think it was Patrick Overmeyer had a pretty good like a seal block right on the defensive end or the outside linebacker. If Kavorian would have gone 1 gap over, he would have scored. He at least would have got an extra 3 yards for sure. And then UTSA would have had 2 attempts from the 1 to punch it in, right? Man, it's really frustrating. And also like going shotgun on 4th and 1 is also something that's personally aggravating to me. I don't know. That whole drive
Definitely.
just left a very sour taste in my mouth. And like at the time, it didn't feel like a big deal because UTSA was up big. Tulsa looked absolutely terrible, right? But then you look back on the game and like, man, there was a lot of symbolism in that drive. I really think that
There was a lot of stubbornness that showed in that drive that ended up, I think, being the reason why the implosion ultimately happened. A lot of stubbornness from the sideline was shown on those 4 consecutive Kavorian Barnes run attempts. Kavorian Barnes averaging 3.09 yards per carry. He is averaging 22 yards per game. Robert Henry averaging 4 yards per carry with 43 yards per game. Brandon High averaging 6.3 yards per carry with 37 yards per game. Worldly difference than what the output you're seeing from Kavorian Barnes has been so far. And it's unfortunate, man. He's a single-digit guy, and you want him to be your workhorse. But again, we are more than halfway through the season. You have got to play who is working and stop playing who is not. We've got to be smarter than that. And I don't care if it was Robert Henry or Brandon High or Kavorian Barnes calling the same damn play to the same damn guy 4 times in a row is egregious, pitiful, and stupid. How dare you? How dare you from 1st and 10 call the same play to the same guy 4 times in a row? There's no player that's okay to do with. I don't care if it's Frank Harris. No way. No way.
Yep.
It's boneheaded, man.
I think a big problem this team has is that they're not the team that they want to be, and I think they have a hard time accepting that, right? I think they are a team that can spread the ball out. They've got a really good quarterback that's played well this year. You know, he's not been perfect, of course, but, you know, he set the school record for passing yards in a single game, right? And, you know, I heard Traylor admit that in his press conference today. He was like, you know, that last drive that we had, or it might have been the second to last drive, they did that quick pitch to the boundary. It got blown up, right? The whole defense was selling out for the run. Kamar Missouri had no chance to stop an outside linebacker with a full head of steam that was flying in on a quick pitch, right? Bad play call. And Traylor said, you know, we probably should have thrown the ball on 1st down there because we knew that the defense was going to be looking at the run. UTSA teams in the past, it wouldn't matter if the defense knew that they were going to run or was expected to run or not. They probably still would have got 3 yards, 4 yards there, right? But that's not this team, right? They just have not had the physicality to impose their will and pick up that yardage at will. To me, that's the number one reason UTSA collapsed in the second half, because they could not run the ball. Do I have the stat here? Yeah. 17 carries in the second half, which is a pretty low number. 5 yards. And you have a massive, massive lead on a very inferior team. How do you not have the physicality to get more yards on the ground? And like UTSA was hitting the deep ball too, right? They were carving up Tulsa's defense. I didn't think that Tulsa was loading the box. I could be wrong. You have to find some way to get your run game going, man. You can't protect a lead if you can't run the ball. That's like a core fundamental of football. And yeah, injuries, whatever, man. Like, this is a bad team, and you were not able to impose your will on them. You were not able to bully them. It's hard to win games that way.
It's very hard to win games that way. I mean, and maybe we should get a little bit deeper into the implosion at this point, Jared. You know, so UTSA is up 35-7 at the halftime. We exchanged 3 and outs, and then there's that ugly strip sack on Owen McCown. Tulsa getting the strip sack on Owen McCown and getting 35-14. But UTSA scores after that. So like that's not really where everything changes for the Roadrunners, because we put together a pretty stellar drive after that strip sack, 75 yards, 7 plays. It took 2.5 minutes off the clock to go up 42-17. And so it's like, all right, no big deal. But then after that, Tulsa comes right out and has like that ridiculous 75-yard touchdown pass. And they score essentially 1 play after it. And that makes it.
Yeah, and also go back and watch that play and see who's on the field, right? Like, Denver Harris was still out there. Ken Robinson was still out there. Donye Taylor was the first one to miss the tackle. Davin Martin was on the field he was on the field. I mean, that was probably his tackle to make, right? Danye misses the first one, but you should have. They were like in a cover 3, I think, right? So Davin should have been able to come down and make that tackle. He just got whipped. Man, he got owned on his block. He could not get off that block. It was not pretty. But then you still have, a fifth-year senior back there that is supposed to be your safety valve that can at least force the guy out of bounds. You would hope, and I don't know what Kent did. He took one of the worst ankles on a tackle I've seen him make as a Roadrunner. So, to say like, oh, injuries caused us to lose this game and we had no one left in the secondary. I mean, that I agree. That play was the turning point. I mean, that was just free points instantly. That, turned what should have been an insurmountable lead into, we got some fight left in us, right? I have a hard time accepting the injuries are the problem there because, Davin Martin's a young player and didn't make a good play there. But you got 2 veterans that played really poorly on that play. Didn't show a lot of effort, didn't show a lot of toughness, and gave up an easy touchdown for Tulsa.
You don't give up a 42-17 lead in 20 minutes because of injuries. It's such a bogus excuse to throw out there.
You have to beat yourself to give up that many points that quickly, right?
In 20 minutes, a 25-point lead in 20 minutes. You have to make a myriad of mistakes, of self-imposed mistakes, in order to even allow that to be mathematically possible. For Tulsa to mathematically do what they did in terms of comeback requires a hell of a lot more than you losing a couple of defensive backs. And it's bogus.
Yeah, I agree.
It's absolutely bogus. It wasn't until about halfway through Jeff Traylor's Monday press conference today, in which he acted like a child, by the way. It wasn't until about
for the record, I didn't think his press conference was that bad. I know a lot of people freaking out about it. Maybe my expectations were elevated because I got so many texts about it. But he did take some accountability, which is good. But his interactions
he did take some accountability.
Good. Yeah, it gave me a bad feeling.
Look. He took some accountability, but it wasn't until about halfway through that interview that he finally said, "It's on me. I have to do a better job." And mind you, it wasn't until he was about halfway through his childlike tirade on Greg Luca that he took onus for it. So it was like he had the realization that he was acting like a child in that interview and bit his tongue, backpedaled, and then said, "It's on me." And he finally says, "It's on me. I have to do a better job coaching." However, you spent the whole first half of the interview and then the whole entire back half after you made that statement emphasizing injury problems. So, you say it's on me, but that was one sentence. The other 100 sentences that were said in that interview were all pointing the fingers at injury, excuses. And it was even funnier was that he kept saying, no one wants to hear the excuses, as he kept making injury excuses. But y'all don't want to hear excuses. Excuses. But y'all don't want to hear excuses. And then finally says, "It's on me." And so it was all over the place. He clearly was very, very emotionally stirred up. And lost his cool. There were no tough, ridiculous, disrespectful questions being asked to him. They were very reasonable questions that were asked to him. He didn't have an answer. He didn't have an answer for the question about how are you correcting the penalty discipline. He didn't have an answer. He got pissed off. He went on a tirade. He bit his tongue and said, "It's on me." Yet talked about injuries the entire time. The amount of onus that Jeff Traylor has taken has been virtually none as far as his talking face goes whenever he is talking in his press conferences, talking in his post-game interviews. He's not owning up to the miserable results that we are having in the way that anyone wants to see him. It's a whole lot of, we're injured, NIL, we made some mistakes. Oh man, this is horrible. This is horrible. And it's not okay, man. It reeks of the way that Frank Wilson was handling his media availability whenever UTSA was having their downward spiral under his coaching. It reeks of the exact same mannerisms and mood.
Yeah, I think the emotions is key, right? Because, I mean, Jeff has said, like, a lot of these penalties are penalties of emotion, right? Where guys lose their cool, they're not collected on the field. I think they get that from their coach, right? I think Jeff has done a lot of the same stuff, right? With his media availability as well as on the sideline, right? Sometimes the camera pans over to him after a big play, and he's just like shell-shocked. There was one, I can't remember when it was in this Tulsa game, but they panned over him and, had his hands on his knees, and he was like, crunched over. It looked like he was going to collapse, right? That doesn't instill confidence in the players. You know what I mean? I really don't think that Jeff knows how to lose, right? I mean, he won so much as a head coach at Gilmer. He's only won as a head coach here at UTSA. I think he's shell-shocked. I mean, I think he's got to pivot and rebalance, right? I still think that Jeff can turn this thing around, right? I think this is still a good team and a good program, but I think Jeff has to learn, right, how to recover from losses, and I think that he's not been able to. Think of that Houston game from 2021, right? He kept bringing up that loss to Houston the whole season. He never got over it, and it was like in the back of his mind. It surely would affect the players too, and no matter what program you are, no program goes undefeated every year. You got to learn how to move on from losses and mistakes. I mean, like personally, like in my career, I had a major setback at work last week, and it haunted me, man. I was like all weekend, I couldn't get any rest because I was like, wow, man, I screwed up. I never screw up at work. I've always been a high achiever and stuff like that. And then I was like, look, like I got put in a difficult situation because I have achieved previously, and I know how this feels. I don't want it to happen again. I went in on Monday, made a bunch of changes at work, pulled a bunch of people together, came up with a game plan. And, I put it in the past. I was like, look, I got to figure out a way forward, right? I could sit here and whine like, yeah, I screwed up and all these people should have helped me, right? But that's not reality, right? The reality is like control what you can control, do what you can do to improve your situation. And I don't think we've been seeing that this year. And I don't think it's in Traylor's, DNA. It's something he's got to learn, right? And I think he will. I do,
and it's a strong point.
I think Jared. It says a lot. It says a lot. Like Joe said in his voicemail, people are not really calling for Traylor's job. It's super rare because people know how good of a coach he is. They know what's in him.
Yeah.
He's going to get this fixed, right? But changes have to be made, right? Some serious reckoning and some serious observation. Some difficult decisions need to happen, period.
And Jared, I'm totally in agreement with you that I'm confident that Jeff Traylor is the man for the job to turn this thing around. I think he can turn this thing around. I think he will turn this thing around. Hell, through the first 3.5 quarters of this game, 2.5 quarters of this game, we had it all the way turned around.
Dude, you saw the talent. You saw the talent. UTSA had the NIL budget to build a team of guys that could blow out Tulsa, right? But then it's like all the mental stuff happens, and
But I mean, in the first and second quarter of that game, UTSA fan is sitting there just salivating at this amazing upset that happens in the undefeated Alamodome against Memphis next week, and doing it again against North Texas. I mean, so the polarity of this team is crazy because it does seem like they're so close to breaking through, but they just can't get out of their own damn way. And that comes down to coaching. They've got a good quarterback. You have a chance in every game in college football if you have a good quarterback, right? That's right. And they just can't get out of their own way. The only fault of that is leadership, is coaching. And you don't have the player leaders to do the player coaching. Jeff Traylor's got to step up and fix that, man. He's got to step up and fix that. Look, he talks about the three main things that led to that implosion: running the football, having a hard time running the football, but we didn't have a hard time running the football in the first half.
Yeah. I haven't figured that one out yet, by the way. I don't know what changed.
I don't know what changed either. I really don't know what changed either. We're having a hard time running the football, so we have too many emotional penalties. And he said we gave up too many big plays in the secondary on defense, which you could also point to a little bit of the injury woes there, Jared, but you brought up some points in our immediate reaction. aside from the injuries, talking about safety help, talking about coverage over the top. Some of those issues that we saw in those big plays weren't all just losing Zay Frazier, Ken Robinson, and Denver Harris, were they?
No, not all of them. I mean, they played with a lot of safety help in that second half. I don't know how effective it was because, Robinson wasn't out there. I saw Elliot Davison make the wrong play at some points too. I don't know. The thing that's really frustrating to me is like the front seven dominated the game. I mean, they had Tulsa's offensive line in an absolute blender, and those guys had no answer. They tied the school record for sacks. They tied the school record for tackles for loss in a game. I don't understand how you can have that much pressure in the pocket and then still give up those big explosive plays that they gave up. It's kind of bewildering. But that last touchdown catch that Tulsa had, that one really drove me insane because they had Tyan Milton, who's like the number 5, number 6 cornerback on the depth chart, 1-on-1 and man coverage against Tulsa's only good receiver, the guy who has like 80% of the receiving yards. And then you end up with 3 UTSA defenders all like essentially defending against the same thing, right? They like followed the flow action on a bootleg rollout. And, I think they had like outside linebacker, defensive end, and safety all following that flow. When like if one of them would have taken 3 steps backwards to try to give a different look to the quarterback to try to prevent him from throwing it to Benjamin out there, I don't know. They probably wouldn't have completed a pass on that play. May have still scored for sure, but that was just frustrating to see. And you just hope they have a different look there because they're going to try to get the ball to their best player in that situation.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some of the good stuff from this game?
I think we need to. Again, this was the best football we've seen the Roadrunners play in 2024, while simultaneously being the worst. Before we saw the worst of the Roadrunners, we saw the absolute best. Damn, they looked good in the first half, Jared. Golly, man. I mean, the machine polished, tight, crispy.
Yeah. It's 2 consecutive games where UTSA has kind of been able to get open at will, right? Whether Owen has hit them or not. I mean, you can't deny he's had open receivers constantly these past 2 weeks. And I think a big part of that is the tight ends getting more comfortable in the offense, right? They have these guys running vertical routes more often. Houston Thomas has turned into one of the best receivers on the team, which is spectacular. He had one play where he went on an out route. There was nothing there, right? The defender had him. Owen rolls out to his left. Thomas jets up. He runs, breaks off his route and just starts running up down the sideline. Owen overthrows him a little bit, but I was like, man, that was almost a big play. That may have gotten in the field goal range on that last drive. But B, just to have the frame of mind to be like, okay, my route's not here. I see my quarterback rolling out. Where can I run to open space and try to get open, right? That's the stuff that we want to see from a young roster. That's great development. Now, unfortunately, drops are still an issue. Only in second half. I don't know why. It wasn't a problem in the first half. But we still saw a lot of guys getting open. Some beautiful throws from Owen. But I think the tight ends, just getting the freedom to go vertical up the field has made a difference to this offense and just gives defense so much more to be worried about.
Definitely so. It just seemed like the cohesion of just like guys playing together, and I'm like, you're starting to see the experience finally come, like, knowing where a guy's going to be before he gets there, having the faith to be able to put it there and knowing that he's going to be there, trusting each other. Just a little bit more of that, like that sort of synchronicity, all settling into each other. And then like the offense and the defense building off of one another and playing off of one another. I think through the first half, that was the best that we have seen that look. Where like winning in all phases of the game, right? Even against FAU, I don't think we were that crispy as far as like putting it all together, defense and then offense, one drive to the next drive, get them right off the field and then score again, and then 3 and out and then score again. I mean, it was just a thing of beauty. But you saw sort of this dominance on all fronts that we hadn't seen. And it was just, it was all really just like cohesion. It was sort of just the main missing ingredient as the team was playing together.
Yeah. I mean, no coincidence that when the running game was working in that first half, that's when the offense looked as gorgeous as it did. Now it was, the passing game was crisp as well. Like they had one drive where they didn't really run the ball at all. And, Owen just kind of picked him apart, had some big plays in the air, right? So, got to give the passing game a lot of credit. But the fact that they've been able to put up this many points and play the way that they have on offense with super limited or non-existent run game is very, very impressive. And if they can get that part fixed, if they can get some healthy linemen and those guys can start winning their one-on-ones and stuff, man, this offense can really be something special for sure. And they're going to bring back almost everybody, right? Not the same on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe it's frustrating that it seems like UTSA is going to flip-flop to having a super returner heavy veteran side of the ball and then a bunch of freshy noobs on the other side. Maybe one day we'll get vets on both sides, but you got to be pretty encouraged with the offense. I think all things considered, for sure. They got to find a way to run the ball.
Definitely so. Yeah, and golly, man, Owen McCowan, really fantastic. Sets a school record. Just want to go through his stat sheet. 30 for 50, 60% completion, 434 yards, 4 touchdowns, and again, a 0 interception day from Owen Cowan. He has only thrown interceptions in 2 of the games that he has started in 2024. Elite stuff.
That's a crazy
from
stat
Owen
for a
Cowan.
sophomore.
Elite stuff. God dang, man. Put some respect on his name. Jeez.
Dude, Owen's legitimately a top 4 quarterback in this conference right now. It's not even a point of contention. Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Owen's been phenomenal. He's going to continue to be phenomenal. Defensive up front, just menacing Tulsa's backfield at least through the first 2.5 quarters. Tied a school record for sacks and tackles for loss. Just got away from us there at the end as the momentum started
they've
to
had a
lose.
lot of injuries. They've had a lot of injuries up there too, right? But they've recruited a lot more depth defensive line than they have in other positions, right? They invested in that position as far as the number of scholarships they've used.
Forced 3 fumbles, only fell on top of one of them, but knocked 3 of them things loose on those sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a menacing front, dude. It really,
the number
is salty.
Of tip passes they had as well. Like, it's a miracle more of those weren't picked off. Also, man, I mean, how many freshmen are they playing on the defensive line? There's a walk-on out there playing a lot of snaps. Not hearing any excuses about injury from the defensive line. They're getting after it, man.
They're getting after it.
Cam Cooper switched positions like 2 weeks ago and had a strip sack. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just asking questions of why one position it's not a problem, but for others it is.
Interesting. So we're only pointing to the injury bug at the positions that aren't performing due to injuries, but other positions are having the same injury woes, but the performance hasn't fallen off. Jared, just to zoom out before we leave all of this away, I just, look, the loss to ECU, you outgain them by 115 yards. Loss to Tulsa, you outgain them by 113 yards. The loss to Rice, you outgain them by like 5, but you outgain them. There's over 10 penalties in each one of those games. Rice just fired head coach Mike Bloomgren after their loss last week. And we haven't seen any sort of changes to UTSA's coaching staff. Jeff Traylor hasn't come down and given us any scapegoat or sacrificial lamb to chew on and burn at the stake. And so we talk about this team being so close yet so far because of how close we've been. Is it okay to not make any changes, or because of how egregious these issues have been, they're like, does somebody's head need to roll? Like, what should we expect as a fan base from this staff, considering where we are right now?
I don't know, man. I mean, Traylor's got all the leverage in the world. He signed a massive contract. UTSA can't buy him out of that contract.
He's not going anywhere, but does somebody need to go somewhere? Because it feels like after the type of losses that we've had, like, something's got to give, whether it's an assistant, a coordinator, whatever. Like,
you have to send a message that this performance is unacceptable, right? And in most places, that's firing a coach, that's firing a coordinator, right? That's benching a quarterback. Something to send a message that
right, something, right.
the level of expectation that we have for this program is not being met, and we will take steps to address that. And the only steps we've seen is complaining more. So
no one's gotten
really
benched. You haven't benched. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, you could bench the guys that are committing the egregious penalties. You could bench your starting ball carriers that aren't getting you the results. To take some single digit aways from guys. Like, I don't know, is that something? Probably. I mean, I think as fans, we would take that something, even if we're taking the single digits away. We're like, yeah, take his damn digital something. Like, but we're not getting anything. We're not getting anything in it. And I think you just said it perfectly, Jared. Like, it's when when the results are unacceptable, a message has to be sent to illustrate that this is unacceptable. We're not getting sent that. We're just being okay with the unacceptable results.
Yeah, just
and that
feeling
doesn't
sorry
feel
for
okay.
ourselves.
Yeah,
I agree. I still think there'll be staff changes this year. Don't really think they're going to fire anyone mid-season. This doesn't seem like
at this point.
Trailer's MO, you know. But I do think there'll be changes, you know, come week 12, because I don't think UTSA is going to get to a bowl game this year, unfortunately. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't imagine they stand pat. I mean, they've fired coaches after good seasons too, right? So I don't see any reason to think that Trailer's loyalty to his guys is so strong that, like, there won't be any staff changes. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't think we're going to see anything midseason.
All right, Jared. Any other thoughts on the biggest implosion?
It's not Tate Sandel's fault that they lost the game, obviously, but he missed a point after that. Tulsa's touchdown would have sent to overtime, not have them win the game in regulation. That's really tough. And, you know, it's completely unfair to pin it on him, but special teams matter, right? We saw them line up for an onside kick when Tulsa was not going to onside kick it and to burn a timeout because of that. You know, not the reason UTSA lost by any means, but we do got to call it out. You know, it's pretty bad to miss an extra point and lose by one.
Well, Jared, there were 2 4th downs in field goal territory that Jeff Traylor did not put Tate Sandell out there to kick the field goal, at which Tulsa's last-minute touchdown would not have mattered. Wouldn't have gotten them the points.
My friend made a good point. He's like, you know, everyone's worried about losing players for NIL and stuff like that. They might lose Tate Sandell because that poor kid, he's got iced by his own coach twice. 2 trips in the red zone last week. They didn't let him kick a field goal. They didn't get points off of. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I feel bad for the kid.
Dude, second half, 39-10 Tulsa.
Well, I mean, all we can do at this point is play the kids, move on, wait for some change. But I think the guys will continue to play hard. I do. I don't think they're going to keep up on the season.
We talk about injuries, Jared. 39-10 in 2 quarters. Are we talking about injuries?
You should be able to have all of your walk-ons out there and defend a 42-17 lead with 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
To Tulsa.
Damn right. Yeah. That Tulsa team was bad, Adrian. They were bad.
Not a good team at all. Not a good team at all, man. This is a horrendous loss for UTSA. Horrendous. And I peg it as the worst in program history. And I said it on our instant reaction, but I'll say it again. 2024 Roadrunners, most unbelievable stat of the 2024 Roadrunners season. 3 times this year have they committed the worst loss in program history. Texas State, Rice, and now Tulsa. Each one worse than the previous. Unbelievable stuff.
Well, we're going to wrap up this episode with a quick preview of the Memphis Tigers. Very formidable opponent for sure. We'll also leave you guys with another voicemail to recap Tulsa before heading into the community break. But we do want to give a big shout out to Matt Booth, who joined us on Patreon with an annual sub at the Insider tier. And it takes a special kind of fan to sign up for an annual sub after the loss that UTSA just had. So, Matt, thank you. We see you. We recognize you. That's true fan status. And shout out to everyone who is sticking around on Patreon despite the less than stellar results from the team. I know it's not as fun to listen to us for 2 or 3 episodes a week. Read the film breakdown when UTSA is taking a loss. So shout out to everyone on our board of trustees, including Digitique, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben represent the UTSA Burger Tailgate, Ray Redding and Mimi Apparel, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group, Andy Elizade, Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Secret LLC, Javon Townsend, President of the DFW Chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Ryan Squares, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Artisan Vapor and CBD, and Wayne Gazalt and the Runners Rising Project. And guys, please keep supporting the NIL efforts for sure. While like the whole they're losing because of NIL is like crazy overblown, that's a wild take. We do still need to make sure that these players are being supported and that they do stick around, right? And that we can continue to recruit good players as we've seen from these young guys on the roster. So we'll send you guys out with a voicemail from our call-in number. And keep in mind, you can always contact us at 210-660-8259 to drop your hot takes through text or through voicemail. So we'll see you guys back after this voicemail and the computer break.
Hey, guys. Calling a little bit after the game. I just want to say, I think this is where Coach Traylor has to grow up as a head coach at the Division I level. Like, Dr. Campos and President Amy did not approve a increase in his assistant coach salary pool just to promote from within. They did that so you can go out, evaluate what type of coach you want, and go get them, no matter the salary, within reason for a G5 team. Like, promoting from within helps and is good for team camaraderie, but when you're losing games like this against Tulsa, against ECU, Rice, against teams we should beat this year, then there's a glaring red flag. And I don't really think there is blame on the players, but I think the coaching is just much more to blame, in my opinion.
All right, guys, welcome back to episode 261. This is our Memphis preview. Hope you guys enjoyed the Cumbia break. And, Adrian and I were talking during the break, and, man, like, Memphis is good. They're 7-1, but with this roster, they should be even better, man. This is a salty, deep, talented roster with so much veteran experience, veteran quarterback. Just, they got dogs everywhere, man. There's really no clear weakness with this team, but they still have shown signs of weakness.
Jared, UTSA is bad. They're 3-5 right now, but with this roster, man, there should be way, way better. They should be way, way better. And in fact, Vegas knows it too, because the line opens up with Memphis as just a 1-touchdown favorite. Are you kidding me? 7.5 points to the 7-1 Tigers coming to the Alamodome, where, by the way, UTSA don't lose. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be damned. Vegas is nervous for the Tigers. UTSA played its best 2 quarters of football last week before they played their worst. But, like, holy hell.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great point, Adrian. Those first half Roadrunners would have given Memphis the business, man.
I am telling you. And those first half Roadrunners tend to be a little bit more consistent when they're in the Alamodome. And so, look, I think the betting line tells you all you need to know about this game. UTSA has much more than just a puncher's chance. They can actually play the way that they ought to. Maybe, just maybe, they can upset the Memphis Tigers. I think it's pretty far-fetched. Can it be done? Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can.
Yeah, I mean, I would give Memphis like an 80% chance to win this game, but a 20% chance for UTSA, given what we've seen from them, I think it's pretty good, right, to be honest with you. I just, I feel like this Memphis team has not maximized their potential. Not even close. And same for UTSA, right?
Sure.
They've got wins over Florida State. Florida State's awful. They have 1 win on the year. $10 million NIL budget, and they've only got 1 win. What's going on there? That's weird. Also wins over North Texas, USF, and Charlotte, right? So, those are all, solid teams in the American. But they haven't really beat a true marquee opponent, I would say. Like, I would say North Texas is probably the best team they've beaten this year. Charlotte took them to overtime. Great game last week. That was a lot of fun to watch. I'd recommend checking out those highlights on YouTube if you missed that game. But then they lost to Navy, and Navy's been ranked, but I personally felt like Navy's been overrated. So wasn't surprised to see Notre Dame shellac them. I don't know, just a Memphis team that feels like they're missing that spark, right?
Yeah, sure. It's just not. They just haven't put it all together.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, not running through.
It would be very appropriate for UTSA to pull the upset here. Memphis kind of stumbles. I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, but Memphis kind of stumbles, the rest of the year, and they fire Ryan Silverfield. I could totally see that.
Well, and like UTSA, don't be surprised at all if they could pull an upset here.
Dude, the cope is real, man. The Memphis fans are listening to this, like these guys are out of their damn minds.
If UTSA were to pull an upset to Memphis, it would effectively make me more pissed off than any singular loss that we have experienced in 2024.
Yeah. And we're having this discussion because we both recognize it's not a talent issue with UTSA, right? The guys that they have out on the field, even in spite of the injuries, are good enough to compete in this game, right? So if they can play clean, avoid penalties, just like they did against FAU and how they did for the first half of the Tulsa game, they're going to be in this one. I really believe that. And, the Alamodome's a tough place to play. And sure, like the attendance is not going to be great for this game at 11 a.m. after, a god-awful loss. But it's still going to be loud in there, right? And,
but yeah.
I think, I said earlier, I think UTSA is still going to play hard.
Tigers fans, don't be mad at the podcast host here. But again, Vegas has this as a 7.5 point spread. They have Memphis by one singular touchdown score. It's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. But it's not. It's not so much. Yeah, Jared. So Memphis Tigers.
Well, I
Memphis
guess
Tigers, who to watch out for?
Yeah, to get a little more to him. I mean, the quarterback Seth Hennigan is the name to know here. UTSA fans have seen him before. He was the freshman quarterback when UTSA came back from a 21-point deficit in Memphis to win that game and kind of put their stamp on the AAC, put them on watch or all that. Hennigan's developed since then for sure, but I think in a lot of ways he's still that same quarterback that UTSA saw. That was the 2021 season, I think it was.
Correct. 2021.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Right. So big time arm, makes big time plays. Very tough kid. Very, very tough kid. But he does have those throws that, he feels himself a little bit too much. And, that's why they lost to Navy. Hennigan was making great plays. He was really managing that last 2-minute drive. And then he just threw one ball that he shouldn't have. And, Navy linebacker was right there, ready to pick it off. I think that one actually got returned for a touchdown to end the game. So he's not perfect. Statistically, he's on par with Owen McCowan, right? I will say that I think Hennigan makes some tougher throws, right? So I think like his numbers are more impressive because he can really push the ball in a way that Owen has struggled to do so. But as far as like accuracy and decision making and stuff like that, right? I think they are, kind of in the same boat there. Now, Hennigan's got some weapons around him, man. This is, like I said, a really stacked roster. Sticking with the passing game, man. Brock Taylor is the guy to know. He's their top target. Just electric speed demon. Definitely an NFL level guy. You're going to see him out making plays on Sundays. He's got 547 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he can get open anytime. Very tough to bring down. Just a real top end athlete. Demir Blankumsey. I don't know how to say that.
Demir Blankumsey. Yes, dude. Yeah. He's pretty salty himself. So he leads the team with 3 touchdowns. I don't know if he's as much of a game breaker as Brock Taylor is, but they also have a pretty good tight end as well, Anthony Lidpier, who's their top tight end both for blocking and pass catching as well. So pretty good core there. And then on the ground, they've got 2 really, really good running backs. I mean, Mario Anderson Jr. is a name that people probably heard before. He'll probably be second string all-conference running back this year, if I had to guess. Just great all-around talent. And same for the guy right behind him, Brandon Thomas. They throw to him a lot, too.
Yeah, they do throw to him. Yep, a lot.
They throw to Mario Anderson a lot, man. They throw to Mario Anderson a lot. He's got the second most receptions on the team.
Yep, second leading catcher. Yep, 100%. And they got a great line in front of them, man. That line is just full of Power 5 guys, guys that played at the Power 5 level. And, they were able to go get those guys out of the transfer portal, and they were plug and play kind of dudes, man. Just a really impressive unit up there. They looked the part. They passed the eyeball test, and they played like it. Like those guys, they've got great grades on PFF, and they can just really control things up front. So it's going to be one of the best offensive lines that UTSA sees this year. Obviously Texas State, I thought, had a great offensive line. This one's probably the third best, if I had to guess.
Yeah. And they just seem to be really well rounded. They distribute the ball really, really well through the air. Hennigan does. He passes it amongst his different wide receivers very, very evenly. All these guys getting between 3 and 4 catches per game. All of them in the upper 20s on the year. And then just behind their offensive line, it's just like it's a team that is like very, very solid, doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. Kind of like what you were saying, Jared. Like they're not beating the snot out of people, like they're not completely dominating, but they're sound. They don't make a whole lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I really love about Hennigan too is his ability to stand up, step into the pocket, and find a check down. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. He's really good about throwing the ball away. Memphis has only given up 11 sacks this year. UTSA's had 7 sacks in each of the last 2 games. So that's going to be a key matchup to watch, right? It's a big difference from FAU and Tulsa's offensive line to this Memphis one. But, hopefully that statistical balance will be somewhere in the middle. Hopefully UTSA can put more pressure on Hennigan than other teams have been able to do. But I think Hennigan's just really good about when he is under pressure, just getting rid of it. If he doesn't throw it away, his performance there is not good. When he's throwing under duress, that's when things really get uncomfortable for him. And when he's thrown, most of his interceptions are turnover-worthy plays, as Pro Football Focus calls them. So we'll see, what UTSA can get as far as pressure goes. That'll be a big challenge for them.
Yeah, and only four interceptions on the year. Doesn't make too many mistakes. And again, they don't beat themselves really at all. Highest number of penalties. Memphis has only committed 7 penalties as their single game high so far this year.
So that was UTSA's best game this year was 7 penalties against FAU, right? Yeah.
I think we had like a 3 penalty game against HCU or something like that.
Yeah, so. Barely counts. Yeah, and that's the thing with Hennigan. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but when he does make mistakes, they tend to be really bad, right? It's not like that was kind of a borderline bad pass. It's like, oh man, like why did he throw that one? You should get a mulligan on that. So yeah, great player for sure, but
their defense, dude, they've hauled in 7 interceptions of their own.
Yeah, dude.
They have some ball hawks in the secondary, dude. Their defensive backs and their linebackers that drop into coverage, nasty.
Yeah,
really, really nasty stuff.
Yeah, let's start with the cornerbacks because we rarely do. I think their cornerback duo is as good as UTSA has seen in a really, really long time. Davion Ross and Kobe Minor, those 2 guys are studs, absolutely legendary. I think both guys, all conference, borderline NFL type talents. A lot of throws that Owen has made this year, he's been able to get away with, right? His receivers have been able to make a play for him, or the defender just didn't go up and get it. I think a lot of those throws that he's been able to skirt by on are going to be really a threat to get picked off against Memphis because these guys are just ball hawks. So a lot of those underthrows that Owens had where he's not fully stepped into it, some of those tip passes that the receivers hauled in and stuff like that. Yeah, he's gonna have some trouble if he does that against Memphis for sure.
Oh yeah, dude. And they had a safety that went to the transfer portal in the middle of the year. What was his name? Taj Rahel. What happened with that?
Not sure. He was playing a little bit, but maybe not as much as he expected. I don't know. I don't remember getting the details on that. I read an article about it, but it was pretty undetermined.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Who else on Memphis D?
Yeah. Best guy on their defense is Chandler Martin. Chandler Martin, man, these stats are gaudy. These are Josiah Tauefa stats. He's got 63 tackles already this year, 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 3 fumble recoveries, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. The kid can fly. I mean, he is so fast. His play recognition is insane. Like those green dog blitzes where it's not the play call for the linebacker to blitz the quarterback, but like you read the play and like if there's no one for you to cover, you might as well go rush the quarterback. He is so fast and so good at making that split-second decision, flying through a gap in the offensive line and getting to the quarterback, right? Whether he comes down with a sack or not, just his ability to speed up the play for the opposing offense is really impressive. And this is an FCS kid. So he was an All-American FCS level at Eastern Tennessee State. I can't remember the name. And made the jump up to Memphis, and he's been just a rock star from day one.
Wow,
man. One of the great examples of where guys use the transfer portal to move up, get some more NIL money, get some exposure at a higher level, and actually show that they can play at that level. So it's pretty impressive.
Can play there.
He's not a big guy. Yeah, he's not a big guy. He's a little bit on the shorter side, but he's a monster. And I'm just looking forward to watching him play because he's a very, very special talent.
Scary stuff from Chandler Martin. Chandler Martin, yeah, his 6 sacks also lead the team, but they've got a couple of guys with multiple sacks. Another linebacker worth mentioning is probably Elijah Herring, who's got 3.5 sacks of his own on the year. And another one of those havoc makers there. He also has an interception as well, Elijah Herring.
Yep.
And then 3 sacks on the year, defensive lineman William Whitlow Jr. And behind him with 1.5, Vic Alabwide. So like the front 7 havoc is really, really nasty. Their defensive up front is just nasty for Memphis.
Yeah, William Whitlow has 5 sacks, but he has 21 quarterback pressures, right? So he is causing offenses to quickly change their game plan when he gets into the backfield.
Yeah.
And, Adrian, you mentioned the havoc stats. I actually went and counted up the havoc stats for this defense, and it's pretty ridiculous. They've got 58 tackles for loss, 29 pass breakups, 10 forced fumbles, 7 interceptions this year. We thought UTSA could create some havoc. This is wild.
This makes me very pessimistic about our upset dreams here and the Vegas odds that are favoring so much because we have seen Owen sort of tighten up and lose his ability to make sound decision making whenever he gets flooded in the backfield so quickly. And I guess he hasn't been under as much duress as over the last 2 weeks as he was a little bit earlier in the season. So has that gotten better? I guess we'll find out this Saturday because he's going to be under a hell of a lot of pressure and it's going to happen quick. Those getting the ball out in under 2 seconds, under 3 seconds, it's going to be a necessity, not just a priority, a necessity this Saturday against Memphis.
His first interception that he threw against FAU disguised that coverage really well, and they had the free safety like kind of line up in the tackle blocks, and then like as the play started, that safety like rotated out to go cover like the field side third of the field or whatever. And then Owen like didn't read that, and that safety was really fast, and he came across the field and got that pick. That play's been replaying over and over in my mind, like knowing how good Memphis' secondary is. They're going to have the speed, the ball skills, the experience, and the intelligence to throw stuff like that at Owen. So it's going to be the hardest game for him to avoid turnovers in so far this year, especially when you combine their ability to rush the passer and the speed they have at the linebacker position. I hope the people that just listened the first 2 minutes of this preview made it this far to hear all this stuff. But one glaring weakness for Memphis is their place kicking is problematic. So they changed kickers this past week. Do I have the names? Yeah, I got the names here. Yeah, so they went from Caden Costa, who was 7 of 12 on the year, to Tristan Vanderberg. And Vanderberg was their kickoff specialist, but he took over the kicking duties against Charlotte last week, and he did miss from 37 out. So that is one area to watch. If this game is as close as Vegas thinks it's going to be, UTSA may have the advantage here in kicking, even though Tate Sandell did miss that point after attempt last week.
Wow, Jared. Very, very interesting stuff. Special teams. The hole in the Memphis Tigers that maybe UTSA can expose. to steal one in the Alamodome and protect the undefeated home record. Man.
If this game is close enough for special teams to matter, I'll be very happy.
If you could pick one, would you rather get it upset over Memphis or the rivalry game UNT in the following week?
I would say Memphis, just because like this team is spiraling right now. And I think the confidence boost that this win would bring would be really important, and I think would keep them motivated to still play for a bowl game. I feel like if they lose this game and they lose bad, yeah, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, maybe with the Memphis win, it just gives you a little bit more hope at the talent on the offensive side of the ball to maybe stay intact over the offseason and remain together because they feel like, we did against Memphis. We could do it. Just give it one more try. Yeah. For me, the bragging rights and the recruiting battles with UNT, those are always important, right? We have more recruiting battles with UNT. That's probably a little bit more important. But from an outsider perspective, yeah, I think it would be more meaningful to beat Memphis than to beat UNT there.
Yeah, and it's an ESPN2 broadcast. Yeah, ESPN2 broadcast as well. So, getting a home win with that kind of on a Saturday morning too. I mean, there's gonna be some pretty good eyeballs on this one.
A lot of people, their team's not playing yet, but they have the ESPN2 game on while they wait for their 2:30 kickoff or 4:00 kickoff or whatever. They're watching Roadrunners at Memphis. Yeah,
I mean, I can't tell you how many bad mismatched 11 a.m. games I watch every single weekend, just because like you only got a couple of options of teams that are actually playing at that time slot.
Tell you what, for the sake of optics, Jared, it would be fantastic for UTSA to put something together in the month of November, because our broadcast schedule is as follows: Memphis versus UTSA, ESPN2. North Texas versus UTSA, ESPN2. Temple at UTSA, ESPN2. That is 3 home games, Alamodome games on ESPN2, none of which you're going to have a great crowd, which sucks, but maybe you can get some respectable football played in front of a national audience. Oh, and then by the way, the season finale, CBS Sports Network. This is 4 straight cable television broadcasts for the Roadrunners to end the season all November long. Holy cow, I don't want anyone to watch this team play right now. Oh, no.
Dude, I was listening to the pregame. I was listening to the pregame radio show for Tulsa, and Uncle Andy said, "Oh, a win here sets UTS up for a November to remember." Now that's too soon. That's way too soon. Before the Tulsa games even started, you're saying that, and then sure enough, it backfired. Right? So still possible to have the November to remember, but I don't want to say that phrase again unless UTSA beats Memphis this week. And then we can talk about it during the bye week, right? We can get fired up about it for sure, but we got to take care of business here. My score prediction,
a lot of eyes.
Adrian.
Yes.
I don't think the secondary is in a spot where they can hang on in this game. I think UTSA is going to show a ton of heart, a ton of fight. I think we're going to see some positives here. We're going to come away feeling a little bit better after this game. But I think Memphis is going to take this one 37, UTSA 27.
I also have a 10-point differential, Jared, exactly as you do. It's 34-24 Memphis Tigers for me. I do think UTSA plays a very respectable, commendable game, but it's nowhere near enough to stop the freight train that is the Memphis Tigers, even in the Alamodome. Team hasn't given us enough to think it would be otherwise, but maybe we get that first half against Tulsa team to play for 4 quarters and shock the world, Jared. I tell you what, if we beat Memphis, I'll pick us to beat UNT. That's for damn sure.
Let's not forget, we gave UTSA a 20% chance to win. So there's some optimism there.
7.5 points.
Dude,
yes,
that
Vegas,
one's crazy, man. It's crazy.
7.5 points. Vegas has a puncher's chance for the Roadrunners as well. And all of the support that the Roadrunners get, all of the support that Alamo Audible gets, we sincerely appreciate, especially in the midst of a 3-5 football season. In years prior, man, and we think back to the losing seasons that we had during the Frank Wilson eras, dude, our subs were dropping like flies.
Dude,
and so like
there was one year we lost like 40% of our subs in like a 3-week period where the UTSA lost a bunch of games. And that's not happened this year.
Our budget sheets, we have been bouncing our budget sheets according to losing subscribers. Like we've anticipated that happening. We haven't lost any. In fact, we just had a sicko sign up with a 3-5 record, and he paid an annual subscription. Shout out Matt Booth. So this is incredible. We really appreciate the support, and it starts at the top. Our big money donors, Mr. Ben Tovar, Christian Sarah Bunch of the Bunch family, Zach Espedicueta on the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, host of Around the Birdbath, Jacob Cavazos, board president of the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of the Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, UTSA King Bowser, Maddie, Home Field Apparel, where you can use discount code UTSA Once Home Field, and you will actually save 15% off of your first order. Yes, indeed. We thank you guys very, very much for supporting. And for our Patreon subscribers, we do actually have some basketball talk. So a break from football this week. We flipping the script over to basketball and the launch of the Austin Clutch era, kicking off in the historic Convocation Center. We're going to try to get excited about that.
Hashtag ready to clutch. I don't know. I feel like we could do better than that, but it's something.
Ready to clutch indeed, baby. We are ready to clutch. Let's go, man. I'm all about it. I'm here for it. And hopefully something that we can get excited about if UTSA football continues to not produce the results that we want from them.